Welcome to Goal's Daily Transfer Show. I'm joined here by our chief correspondent Pete, and I'm your host Miles. Today we're going to be talking about Malcom's... It's a great start. Arsenal's bid for Malcom. We're going to talk about Carlos Tevez's China heist, and we're going to talk a little bit about the rest of the transfer talk going on in the January transfer window.
Tell me more about Alcom.
Alcom. The Bordeaux winger Malcom is one of the top targets for Arsenal in the January transfer window, along with Manchester United and Tottenham, who are also interested in this 20-year-old kid from Bordeaux. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you know about Malcom?
Yeah, sure, why not? Well, what we know about Arsenal's interest in Malcom is that it's been brought forth by a man that we've spoken about a lot on this show, is Sven Mislintat.
Yeah.
The new head of recruitment, I think his title is, or
Chief Scout.
Yeah. And Mislintat was looking at him for Dortmund last year. So he was on Mislintat's radar before he was on Arsenal's radar. And now obviously Mislintat is in place at Arsenal, and he's taken his targets with him. And one of the big targets that he has is Malcom. And if you don't know a lot about Malcom, he's got a very good left foot. He's scored a lot of powerful shots from outside the box so far this season.
He's got 7 goals.
7 goals.
4 assists in 18 Ligue 1 appearances.
And this is for a very bad team, by the way. Bordeaux, they're nowhere in Ligue 1. I think they're 15th, so they're not a great team. He's kind of the high spot in what has been a pretty poor season for them. The goals that I've seen him score, he's scoring them from sort of the right-hand side, coming in on his left foot, and then smash him in to the far corner. So if you're looking for a point of comparison just on those type of goals he scores, maybe an Arjen Robben type figure. But you know, there's big interest in him from Man United, from Spurs. We know that Dortmund were interested when Mislintat was there. And if Arsenal do manage to get in ahead of the curve here and beat some of these other big sides to the signing of Malcom, then that would be quite a coup for Arsene Wenger and for the new chief scout.
Arsenal have quite a rich history, obviously, of going into Liga and poaching some of their best stars. Obviously, Alexander Lacazette was one of the more recent ones, came in last summer. But I think Arsenal fans expecting Malcom to come in and replace Alexis Sanchez, they aren't necessarily going to be satisfied with the results, although there is a lot of talent there, clearly. Well,
who knows? You know, some young players take you by surprise when you think they're not ready. Like, look at Mbappe coming into the Monaco team last year, for example.
True.
You know, coming in as a kid, and then he does so well that the manager just doesn't have a choice in leaving him out or giving him a rest. He's your best player, you have to play him. So, you never know. There's obviously an acclimatization period, but we've seen on his Instagram already he's learning English.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe that shows a maturity and a willingness to knuckle down and give himself all the advantages that he can to make sure that he succeeds in the Premier League.
We've prepared a short video with 5 things you probably didn't know about Malcom, so we're going to cut to that now and we're back in a second. So as a teenager, he banned himself from playing video games. That's pretty impressive. I don't think I could have done that as a teenager. Well, certainly as a 13-year-old anyway, but like, no.
I thought you were going to say as a 23-year-old.
I'd struggle, yeah. But that's quite a commitment, and clearly, you know, as you said, he's shown a bit of maturity. He seems like a kid who's been playing. I mean, from that, he started kicking the football at 8 months of age. Obviously, I can't imagine he was that impressive as a baby. But, you know, he's clearly been devoted to becoming a footballer all his life.
Yeah, and to beat off the competition of 400 other boys, you know, to make it through and be the only person selected from a trial. I mean, it just shows you the I suppose, the breadth of talent that they have in that's just one city in Brazil.
Yeah.
You know, and to come out on top of that within your age group is quite a phenomenal achievement. And giving up video games things, I mean, that's what, you know, you're looking for the extra 1% all the time, the little marginal gains. And
that's it. Yeah.
If he thinks it's going to help him, some players, if you talk to them, they think that playing FIFA actually helps them visualise matches better.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, so it can work both ways, but maybe cutting himself off at a young age from those kind of distractions has stood to him. Certainly, he's not been in Bordeaux that long. I think, was it January 2016 he came in? And look where we are now. So it's sort of 2 years later, and he's one of the best performers outside the top four in Ligue 1. So credit to the boy.
Arsenal's pursuit of Malcom hasn't necessarily rendered their pursuit of Thomas Lemar obsolete. This is one of Monaco's star players, but it seems like the player that they bid, I think it was £92 million for on the summer deadline day back in August. Their valuation has dropped dramatically, so now they're only willing to pay 40 million, whereas Monaco wants 60 million. And it kind of shows, doesn't it, how deadline day completely exaggerates value sometimes, and Arsenal completely backed off of it.
Yeah, well, again, it brings us back into this vortex that Neymar has created. That, once a team sells a player, then every other team knows that there's money to be spent. So at that stage, it looked very much like Alexis Sanchez was going. So it appeared as though Arsenal were very, very desperate for a replacement. And Monaco treated them accordingly.
Yeah.
We know you need this, so here's the price. It's supply and demand. It's one of the oldest laws underpinning economic theory since time immemorial. So it's no surprise there.
Yeah. We've got a couple of comments here about what we've been talking about. So Yanis has said, Malcom, why not Mahrez?
Why not Mahrez? Mahrez is a proven Premier League player, and look, I personally don't understand why so many big teams have been put off by Mahrez. You look at his level of performance when he's on his game for Leicester has been title winning. It's been brilliant. He's probably got as good a record as, let's say, Eden Hazard over the past 2 or 3 seasons, and he's been Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's some question marks over his physique or his work rate, but you think by this stage he'd have answered enough of those questions. I do think that Leicester, they're not going to win the league anytime soon, put it that way. But I do think that Mahrez deserves to be playing for one of those higher clubs. Look, if the likes of Drinkwater can go and play for a Chelsea, for example, then I do think that Mahrez, who's a more important player in that title-winning team, then he can go forward as well.
We've also got Blake Dean has said Crouch.
Can I mention something about Mahrez, though?
Go on,
Just
then.
one thing, right?
Yeah.
Arsenal fans, you want to know how bad your recruitment was? In the same transfer window that Leicester bought Mahrez, Arsenal paid more money to loan Kim Kallstrom.
So they properly screwed that one, didn't they?
So there you
could
go.
have had Mahrez.
That's how bad Arsenal's recruitment was at that stage. So this is the team that dominated Ligue 1 for so long when it comes to bringing players in.
Yeah.
And in that one particular transfer window, I think Leicester paid 275,000, maybe 300,000 to bring Mahrez in. And at the same time, from Spartak Moscow, Arsenal took loan of Kim Kallstrom, came into the club, and he had a back injury, and he played about 4 matches for them. So that's what Wenger could have had compared to what he took. So
Blake Dean said Crouch. Actually, Crouch is too good for Arsenal. You can't imagine if Arsenal signing Crouch.
What's this?
It's just one of the comments. They reckon get Peter Crouch in for Arsenal.
Get Peter Crouch in for Arsenal?
Yeah, super sub, yeah. No.
I don't think I can appropriately formulate a response to that suggestion.
Let's swiftly move on then. So another big talking point in the last couple of days has been Carlos Tevez's return for the 3rd time to Boca Juniors. As our Goal's very own South American football expert Daniel Edwards, he wrote a piece about how it's essentially been a $40 million heist from Carlos Tevez.
Yeah, and we had Maradona speaking about that as well, where he
yeah.
said he took Santa Sac to China, loaded up with dollars, and came back to Boca. Yeah. Well, look, you talk to anybody who's involved within Chinese football, and I know a few people who are involved with clubs over there, and they'll tell you that the pressure for foreign players when they go to China is immense. We do have a perception, maybe in the West, that once players go to China, that's it, they've chucked it and they're just going to be earning sweet cash and doing nothing for it until they retire, until they decide to come back to Europe. It's not like that at all. The pressure that these guys are under to perform, for the clubs, they're expected to provide a culture of winning and a culture of professionalism for young Chinese players, and they're expected to act as almost brand ambassadors for the big companies that are backing these teams as well. The pressure is and should be huge. Now, Tevez pretty much threw all of that in the fire. He had no interest in becoming for Shanghai Shenhua. He didn't want to be that. So I think he will be the last of the big signings that Chinese clubs get their fingers burnt on.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not saying that big players are going to stop going to China, but I think they'll be very, very careful over what ones they're going to bring in, because they don't want to be. Those clubs do not want to be taken for a ride by players coming in, taking $40 million out of the club, out of the country, and buggering off back to Argentina.
I mean, we say that, but there's also talk of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who plays for Borussia Dortmund, obviously. One of the highest rated forwards in Europe at this point, really. Yeah. Going to China for €72 million, I believe.
Yes.
So they haven't completely abandoned their approach. I think they're just trying to be a little bit more...
Well, as we understand it, there's two clubs fighting over Aubameyang, and it's Beijing Guan and Guangzhou Evergrande. Now, the issue here is that neither of them, at this stage, want to be seen to be chasing Aubameyang because there's been a big crackdown from the Chinese Football Association and from government level over things like capital flight, which means they do not want Chinese money leaving the country. So to take 72 million like that and pay it to a club in Germany is seen as not a good use of Chinese funds, put it that way. And also they do not want to hinder the development of young Chinese players as well. You see the new rules that have come in that any number of young Chinese under-23 players, any number of foreign players in the first team needs to be matched by the same number of Chinese under-23 players.
Right.
So what they do not want this to become is like what the NASL was when Pele was there, which is just one superstar signed and surrounded by guys making no more money than you and me. Yeah, but they want to get away from that model. Now, also, what's going to hinder them in the pursuit of Aubameyang is this 100% foreign player tax, which means that if you want to buy a player from overseas, you have to pay the equivalent of the transfer fee in tax. That then gets reinvested. Yeah, you're paying double. Right. So these clubs do want Aubameyang, but it's going to all have to be done on the QT. And I expect him to move in May. I'll be honest.
72 million. So essentially, you'd be paying
150 million.
Yeah, essentially
something like that. Yeah.
So that's crazy.
But I'm surprised a little bit. It's kind of been a love-hate relationship between Aubameyang and Dortmund over the last maybe a couple of seasons. We've seen him banned a few times. He's made no secret of the fact that he wanted to leave. Real Madrid were linked at one stage, Arsenal were linked at another stage, and he's still a player in his prime for me. And I still think he could do a job for a top Champions League club. But maybe he sees the opportunity at this stage is too good to turn down.
It seems like Javier Mascherano is going to be joining Hebei China Fortune for a €7 million salary, I think it is. So he's getting a pretty decent deal. He's 33 years of age. He's more in the sort of Carlos Tevez camp of someone who's going there at the sort of twilight of his career, making a bit of money.
Yeah, but they scout these players, they know exactly what they're looking for, these Chinese clubs. And, you look at the dedication that Mascherano has given down throughout his career. I don't expect that to change just because he's playing in China all of a sudden. But what that has done then, as we've seen the confirmation of Yerry Mina's deal from Palmeiras, is it's freed up space in Barcelona's squad for another centre-back. So Mina now will come in and he'll challenge the likes of Piqué and Umtiti for a place in the first team, which Mascherano just wasn't doing this season. His time has come and gone at Barcelona. He's been a great servant for them. But now it's time for Pastors New for Barca and for Mascherano.
He'll be playing with a compatriot of his, Ezequiel Lavezzi.
Yeah, who's knuckled down and done really well in China.
And there's also ex-Arsenal forward Javinho who plays over there.
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah,
he's got a decent few teammates.
Yeah, it's a good level. Yeah, it's a good level, that club.
So now we're going to move on to some of the back pages from this morning. Kicking off with the Telegraph, which had Sanchez's last stand. Essentially talking a bit about how it might be his farewell, having come off the bench yesterday in Chelsea's 0-0 draw against Arsenal.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it'll be his last game?
Well, who knows? Who knows how long this one is going to drag on? I certainly expect it to be done definitely before the end of the window.
You think so?
Yeah, of course it will. But maybe it could be done a long way before that. I think it's in everybody's interest that it gets tied up as soon as possible. But I don't understand people reading too much into that. Players get rested for League Cup games.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that he was on the bench last night, so that means he's going to leave today. He came on anyway. So
he came on, didn't do much, but no one did much yesterday.
Yeah, but what was more interesting is Wenger's response when he was asked if it was instructive whether Alexis Sanchez was on the bench. Did that mean anything? He gave a very, very incoherent answer about it all. I think he's sick of answering questions about it. And
I think I would be at this point.
The sooner you could get rid of Sanchez, the better, I think, for Wenger.
The Sun have also gone with a similar approach. They've said Alexit strategy.
Alexit
playing on the Brexit.
Brexit on the front, Alexit on the back.
I think, do you reckon that Wenger will be happy with that stalemate yesterday? The 0-0 draw at Chelsea?
Well, Arsenal are a great match for the top teams, but they just can't seem to beat them. I think they'll be quite happy with that, because I would fancy Arsenal to certainly open Chelsea up a little bit in the return leg.
Daily Mail, again, everyone's leading on the Chelsea-Arsenal match, because obviously it was last night. They said no way through. It's another similar take. Wasn't the most exciting match. Many of you will have watched it last night, but as you say, I think they'll be quite happy with that result.
I tried to watch Peaky Blinders instead.
You hate it? I love it.
I didn't like it.
Contrasting approach. And the Eye have actually gone with something different. They said Ancelotti is in line to succeed Wenger. Is that something that you could see happening? Do you reckon Ancelotti would be a good choice for Arsenal to hire?
No. I think Ancelotti's strength is working with established clubs, established players, big personalities in sort of their mid to late 20s, early 30s, and kind of getting everybody together, getting that companionship, that togetherness, that team spirit fosters, and making sure that not necessarily any great tactical blueprint is taking place, but just making sure that there's a cohesion in what is a superstar group. And Arsenal are not a superstar group, so I don't think that I think they need more of a legacy builder.
Who would you put in?
I think Simeone would be good for Arsenal. Yeah. If I had my choice, I'd probably go for Simeone.
He's done great work at Atletico. Obviously.
He's done great work at Atletico. Maybe his football is a little bit attritional, but he's well used to working within the kind of system that Arsenal are now beginning to implement. There's been huge changes at Arsenal, over the last last 18 months. Once upon a time it was, sort of Wenger's personal fiefdom, but now they've got a new guy negotiating the contracts. They've got a new guy scouting the players. They've got a new guy in charge of recruitment. So, they kind of seem to be decentralising that power away from Wenger and leaving the space then just to have a coach come in and coach the first team and that be his job. So I don't think we're going to see anybody building an empire the same way that Wenger did, and nor do Arsenal want that, because when it comes time to extricate that figure from a club, the whole thing can fall down around him. So they want to get away from that and just bring a coach in who knows how to work in this kind of system. So for me, I don't know, I think Simeone would be a good choice.
Let us know in the comments section if you agree with Pete, if you think Simeone should be in charge, or if you reckon that Ancelotti would be a great man to replace Wenger. I'm going to read out a few more of your comments that you've sent through so far this morning. So we have one from Michael Wooldridge. He says, "Can't believe United are thinking of signing Lucas."
Well, I think it makes perfect sense that they sign Lucas. Mourinho, this season, he's been playing players in wide positions, but they're not necessarily wide players. The likes of Rashford and Martial, they're not natural wingers. Mkhitaryan, Mata, even. So I do think what they need is to get people really wide on the outside and make sure they can get crosses into the box or even get those overlaps on the go. And I think Lucas, I know he's been sort of stuttering in his PSG career, but I do think he can provide that for them. I think he'd be a good signing for them. We
also have a comment here from Akinyemi who says, "When will Chelsea buy another edition?" They've had a quiet transfer market so far, haven't they? It's not been linked with anyone major.
Not really been linked with anybody.
It's not like there's a
they've had Ross Barkley, obviously.
Yeah, aside from Barkley, yeah. I mean, in terms of bringing in more reinforcements, there's not been a saga to the extent as it has, for example, with Coutinho or Alexis Sanchez.
No, but they'll be drawing up their plans for summer. They'll understand that this season has been inadequate, an inadequate defence of their title. I don't think they've not threatened at any stage to get anywhere near Man City, to finish second in their Champions League group as well. It's been a bad season by their standards. I know they're so close in the league, as in position-wise, they're second, I think, aren't they, at this stage?
Yeah.
Second or third, but there's only a point in it or so. So, but from their perspective, not good enough after winning the league last year. So the recruitment has to get better next summer. So keep their powder dry in the winter market, freshen it up maybe just a tiny bit with Barkley, give them some options going forward, and then hopefully they don't lose Courtois. Hopefully they don't lose Hazard in the summer. And then try and build out from there.
Alright, thanks Pete, thanks for joining me today. We're going to leave it there. We'll be back again same time tomorrow for the Daily Transfer Show. Thanks to those of you who've commented so far, and keep sharing your thoughts in the comment section below.